1,000 years ago, superstition and the sword ruled. It was a time of darkness. It was a world of fear. It was the age of gargoyles. Stone by day, warriors by night. We were betrayed by the humans we had sworn to protect, frozen in stone by a magic spell for 1,000 years. Now here in Manhattan, the spell is broken, and we live again.
And you're listening to 91.3 FM WCOW, the Dr. Chris Radio of Horror Show. If you're not catching this live at midnight, then hopefully you're catching this on the Radio of Horror YouTube channel with the rest of our great interviews. And the Gargoyles do live again in some way, shape, or form. Tonight on the show, we have with us the man who is trying to bring the Gargoyles back, director Carlos Ferrer, who has put together an amazing Gargoyles fan film trailer to hopefully maybe reinvigorate a franchise, which honestly, in this day and age that we have the Avengers grossing $1 billion in 2 weeks, the Gargoyles would fit right into the Marvel Universe perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an exciting time, and no better time to bring Gargoyles to life as a live-action feature film for sure. Just with where technology is today and how long it's been. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great story, and no better time to bring it into the live-action world for sure.
I honestly believe, other than Condor Man, which was a Disney superhero movie from the back in the 80s, Gargoyles is the number one property that people have been asking Disney to bring back, especially because they have bought Marvel Comics. And Marvel actually used to publish the Gargoyle comic book series, which was really good. The artwork in it was by Amanda Conner, who would go on to work on Vampirella and is currently the writer and cover artist for Harley Quinn for DC Comics. Those comic books were fantastic. I loved them. And the 4th issue was my favorite. I would love to see them interact with so many things. But what was your first exposure to Gargoyles? Was it the cartoon series? Were you watching it when it was on the Disney Afternoon?
I was watching it around. I was around 8 or 9 years old in 1994 when it first aired, and I was pretty young, and I was just totally blown away by it. Just how dark and gritty it was, compared to everything else on at the time, and it was just full of action, romance, and humor, and it was engaging intellectually, and yeah, I mean, you could say so much about it. It had references to classic literature and ancient mythologies, Shakespeare, even the Illuminati, which was crazy at the time. I mean, I didn't even know what half those things meant at that age, but as I got older, I kind of gained more appreciation for all of those details and everything they put into the show.
It was chock full of so much real folklore and legends and mystery and tales of like King Arthur, and you're right, Shakespeare, of course, that you really got to give it up to is it Greg Weisman? That's the creator, right? Greg Weisman.
Greg Weisman, yeah.
For doing as much research as he did to put into that, and it's such an amazing voice cast. It was like Star Trek: The Next Generation went off the air. Everybody went over to Gargoyles.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean,
have you ever seen the trailer that the fan put together of Gargoyles: The Next Generation, and they play the the Star Trek music?
I haven't seen that.
And then they Jonathan Frakes and the woman who played Demona, who played Counselor Troy. And then of course Brent Spiner, and the actor who played Worf, right? He guest starred too sometimes.
It's crazy how that ended up happening. I mean, I've read about it, and it seems like too much of a coincidence that happened, but fun nonetheless. And I think it worked out pretty well. I think everybody was cast very well in the original show, and it's almost so well. It's almost hard to think of a new cast to to put in there, to replace them, if a live action film actually did occur. So it's, I mean, I think it was happened for it happened for a good reason, and and they all did a great job. So.
Many years ago, somebody actually created a Gargoyles fake movie poster with Jonathan Frakes as his character Xanatos, because for a long time, Jonathan Frakes really did look like David Xanatos, with the exception of Jonathan Frakes did not have a 90s mullet ponytail.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. No, I mean, it's true. And he did such a good job with that character. And I mean, the character itself is so great. So many people to this day love that character just for I mean, he's just such a complex villain. He's not like, you don't know if you love him or you hate him, and that was certainly unusual for the time too when the show aired.
I think he was the best combination of both Lex Luthor and Tony Stark.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. I kind of think of him that way too.
I think he was as egocentric. I think Tony Stark is more egocentric than Lex Luthor, but in the positive way. And Lex Luthor is always doing the wrong thing for what he believes to be the right reasons.
Right.
No more evident than the most recent Lex Luthor story arcs over the last several years in Action Comics, if you've been reading Superman. Post New 52, kind of post New 52 and Rebirth, where Lex Luthor took on a more of a Guardian of Metropolis kind of role, trying to prove that he can be like Superman, hence adorning Superman's emblem to his chest, and then most recently taking it off because of what Mr. Oz did to his armor. Lois Lane still having to point out to him, if you want to be the hero, rescue those people, and he's like, okay. And that happened in the Superman Action Comics special that just came out this past Wednesday, right after Action Comics number 1000. And Lex Luthor's kind of got a good guy role recently in the Doomsday Clock, which is the big Watchmen DC Universe crossover. And then you have Tony Stark, who's this eccentric billionaire who has done wrong things, but is always trying to do the right thing for the right reasons. But he lets his ego get way too much in the way, such as the ways David Xanatos does. And the only thing that would ever break Xanatos's ego streak is, of course, his the love for his wife Fox, and eventually his baby, which would honestly propel him into being a good guy. Which we got to follow a little bit in that third season. A lot of the fans don't like, and I'm with them on that. But the one thing I did like about it is we get to see David Xanatos be a good guy, even though he was still kind of doing bad things here and there, but still for the right reasons, just needing to be pointed in the right direction with his money.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's something that really drew me to the show too, is just how you have these characters, and whether they're the heroes or the villains, they're very three-dimensional. They have so much going on with them, good and bad, and they make mistakes, and it just makes them so much more interesting. I mean, the villain especially is always portrayed in so many movies and shows like as being they're the bad guys, like, and that's it. And there's no dimension to them. And yeah, Xanatos was just such a great character in that way. And you really fall for him too. Like you fall for like what he says. You're like, you kind of in line with the characters and how they think of him as the show goes on. And that was just great, growing up with that, watching the show. And yeah, I mean, I think in a live action film that would play off, in a way even better, just because you have that, you're on a more human element. You're seeing someone real in front of you play the role.
And also, I'm never going to say I'm as familiar with like the backstories of the ethnicity of certain characters, but as far as I can remember, in terms of animation, this was the first Latino female cop as a main character, correct? I mean, at this time we were having Jimmy Smits, who was Latino, playing whatever the name of his character was on NYPD Blue. I did not watch it, but he was the 90s cop at the time. And this was, again, as far as I'm aware, even before we got, Renee Montoya became a big character in the Batman books, her being more, obviously them focusing more on her being a lesbian than a Latino cop. Our female heroine was the first of her kind, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think certainly at the time, I think that even just the fact that she was, a female character that was, pretty kick-ass. She was not she wasn't a damsel in distress, and she was even understanding of these creatures, the gargoyles, and she was strong enough to to take on half the stuff she takes on in the show. So as a female at the time, just that alone, I think really came off great. Because we see that more today, but at the time I don't think we really saw that much. And I think Lisa's mother is she's African American, I believe, and she's got like a lot of different heritage in her, and I think that's great. I mean, I think that just that's another side of the show and the characters that are so interesting. Because in many ways the show is about sort of not being accepted in society, or being different, or being feeling different, and I think it just kind of makes sense that they did that with her and her character.
The rest of the characters in the show, of course, the gargoyles themselves, go without saying about how great they were. Obviously, the biggest props will always be given to the two big voice actors, which were David Keith, who would go on to play Al Simmons in Spawn, the animated series, which it seems like as soon as Gargoyles ended, he was immediately on Spawn, which is fantastic. And
right.
On my podcast, the Dead TV podcast right now, we're actually covering Spawn, the animated series, so we're constantly talking about Gargoyles whenever he's getting all into rage mode as Al Simmons. And then we had Ed Asner as the kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi of the Gargoyles.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Keith David and his performance and the way he played Goliath, I mean, it's so great. Like who else could you hear in that role? He really nailed it.
Now, when did your planning for your do you call it a short film, fan film, or do you call it a trailer? It's kind of all of them.
I call it a fan film. I mean, I think of it as a fan film, somewhat of a teaser for something larger, because while making it, obviously had a live action film in mind, and bringing it to life in a feature film format, and making that work in a longer way. So it was sort of, I do think of it like a teaser fan film. You can call it kind of whatever you want, I guess, but it was really just to excite people again about the show, and give something to the fans that they haven't really seen yet when it comes to the show. Something that's a little different, and in terms of being live action versus a cartoon, and what that feels like.
When did you start planning this? How long? What's the story behind where this evolved from?
I've thought about it over the years, just having watched it so much as a kid, and I was always kind of shocked seeing all these movies come out, reboots and remakes and shows, live action films from cartoons, and I was always surprised they never made a Gargoyles film. And so I looked it up, and I saw that it has been something that they've wanted to do for some time, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked out. And I kind of got fascinated with the idea of seeing it as a live action film, and as a filmmaker, to direct such a movie would be incredible, just because of the story and the characters, and obviously the visuals and what you'd be able to do with it today, with the right team behind it. And so it just became this thing that I kind of obsessed about, and I just wanted to see it myself, and I thought, well, this would be fun to do, and so I started working on it, and it's something that obviously wasn't paid to do. I'm not making any money off of it in any way, so it's sort of something I'd have to do on the side whenever I could. The total process probably took about 6 months when you combine all the time I actually worked on it, but it was over the course of like 2 years, just because of having to work on other things and come back to it. So it was just this long sort of exciting experience I had a lot of fun making it, and I just thought, I'll put this up and I'll see what people think, and you know, I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed seeing it myself. So I thought people would enjoy seeing it too, and see where things go. You know, see if it happens, if it can excite someone else to make it happen.
Now, is the film entirely? If I remember, is the film? It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen it. Is the film entirely in CG? Is there any part of that film that was live action?
There's really just background plates.
Okay.
You know,
because it was really hard to tell. A couple times I could tell where the CG was, and a couple times I was like, "Is that real?"
Well, right. Well, I mean, thank you. I mean, that's a compliment. I mean, there's some live shots in it, and then there's some, but most of it's, I would say it's around 98% CG.
Okay.
And you know, all the people you see and the characters, those are CG. And the
let me ask you this: why couldn't you find someone to, let's just say, ride a motorcycle?
Well, I mean, just when you watch it and you see what's happening in the scene with the cars flipping and it was something that I kind of, you know, at the beginning it was sort of this passion of wanting to see what it would look like, and you know, I'm more of a writer director than a visual effects artist.
Okay.
But it was, in a way, it was for me just wanting to see it come to life in the most epic way. I could make it come to life, and I thought doing it in CG, since I had some experience in that, would be the best way to pull it off in this short format. You know, if I made a live action film, I'd probably go about it a little bit differently. You know, and I think that with the proper team and the proper talent behind it, you could pull off something even greater, and you know, the possibilities are really exciting today with motion capture. And I mean, it would be such an exciting film to see. So.
I know they announced they're not going to be at the San Diego Comic-Con, but are you going to Disney's actual thing with maybe a copy of it like on CD or a flash drive and try and hand it off to somebody?
That's a good idea. I haven't decided yet if I am or not, but
would you make sure you have a lawyer present just in case Disney's like, sue you?
Oh no. You know, I don't. I mean, I like I said, I made it as a fan for the fans. You know, so it's like, for me, it's like, that's what it's been about, and I'm not, you know, I didn't make any profit off of it, so it's sort of, to me, it's just, I'm hoping that, you know, Disney themselves and anybody involved, Greg Weisman, you know, just takes it sort of like for what it is, which is, you know, I'm as much of a fan of Greg Weisman and Disney as I am of the show. Like, it's, you know, it's because of them that it came to life, and that we're here talking now. So yeah, I mean, you know, I hope that whoever sees it just, you know, takes it for what it is. I love the show, and I'd love to see it happen. And if I could be a part of it in some way, I'd be, you know, grateful. It's a amazing property. So.
But you haven't heard from anybody even closely connected to Disney, right?
I haven't talked to anybody yet. Not yet. So we'll see. It'll be exciting to see if anybody does contact me.
Now, who is the marketing team that helped you got involved with you for this film, that also sent it to press people like myself to, you know, spread the word around?
I mean, I'm actually right now working on getting a feature film out that I worked on before this project, and we've been picking up some distribution for that, and I have some people helping me with that. So like, in terms of the PR, that's where it came from, was, you know, when they heard about it, they talked about getting it out there, which I, you know, didn't even expect, really. I was just, like I said, my plan was to make it and just put it online and see what happens, you know, just because, you know, I'm a fan. I just wanted people to see it. So.
What's your feature film that you're working? What's your, you know, your own project that you're working on? What are you doing right now?
Well, the feature film I made is Retina. It's called Retina, and it's about a young woman who's called to participate in a medical study in New York City, and she's unknowingly brainwashed into committing an act of terror in the city. So that's a feature film that's around 90 minutes, and I worked on that for a number of years, and that's kind of where I learned how to do a lot of the CG and the 3D animation that I put into the Gargoyles fan film, and even some of the sound mixing and the music. A lot of that went into or came from the experience of making my feature Retina.
The poster for it has this woman. Is it Is it Lindsay Goranson?
Lindsay Goranson.
Okay.
Yep.
So she's looking out, just kind of a headshot of her for your film Retina.
Yeah, that's right. And she's the lead, and she's pretty much the whole movie, and she does a fantastic job. I couldn't be happier with what she did in the film, just because it's so, when you work on a film for so long, which I did with that one, you see things that you could have done better. You see things like, as a filmmaker, I wish I did this differently. But with the performances and with her performance in particular, it's something that I've never gotten tired of seeing. She did a great job, and she really made the character come to life. So I'm excited for people to see it finally.
How well did you get to know Mary Tyler Moore, who unfortunately passed away last year?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I met her when I was very young, and she was actually my dad. My dad is a hairstylist in the city in New York City, and so she was a client, and I met her through him, and he told her about me as a 14-year-old making movies, and she said, why don't you send them to me, and I'll take them to the set of one of my movies, and I'll show them what it's like to be on a real movie set. And so that's kind of where that began. Was I went along with her, and I went to the set of a movie she was working on at the time called Labor Pains, and it was incredible. She showed me at like 14 what a real movie set looks like, with entire crew and professional actors, and it was incredible. And so I stayed in touch over the years, and we always got along, and I ended up doing an interview with her that I have on my YouTube channel, and I put that up shortly after she passed away. Something that she did as a favor to me years ago, and I just thought, to honor her, I thought her fans would love it, and she's just such an incredible human being, and so if you just see the comments on the video alone, you'll see how many people loved her. I mean, she was just a really great person.
Did you ever read the Gargoyles comic books that came out a few years ago that was supposed to be like the better version of what season 3 was?
You mean was it SLG?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they were like they reprinted them in like 2 little trade paperbacks, and then now go for like $50 to $70 on eBay.
Oh, I know. I've always wanted to get my hands on those, and a lot of. I mean, I wish I had more Gargoyles comics. I have a few of them, but most of the ones that I have are the Marvel ones, which I like, I enjoy, but I've always sort of been a little bit more interested to see what they did with the SLG comics, because I believe those are sort of more in line with the world of the show, and Greg Weisman's vision, which would have been interesting to see,
Yeah, they talk about it definitely takes place after season 2, because the news media is constantly covering like the Gargoyles have emerged, and like who are these creatures, and people are like either in support of them or hate them. The media is questioning what is David Xanatos' connection to them, because they found out that connection as well. And then they did a third one, which was like a lot of like the villains of the Gargoyle do kind of like a Sinister Six team up book, almost like Suicide Squad. I remember Wolf is one of the members, and I think that's the only one I can remember off the top of my head, is that Wolf is one of them.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I would love to have more of those.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, all the comics are great. I mean, they're fun to see just because, I love the characters. But yeah, I mean, hopefully I can get my hands on some more of them soon.
I have a pitch idea for a fan film myself, which I actually went directly to the artist for a comic book and asked him about it, and he said, "Yeah, well, that would be great." I gotta warn you though that Showtime once upon a time optioned it for a TV series, but that was years ago, and they haven't done anything with it yet. So that's the only pushback you'll get. But that would be awesome if you did that. I was like, I have no interest in flying out to the United States and suing some American for his love of my work and making it into a fan project. He said, "You Americans are so sue happy." I was like, thanks. So in the meantime, I actually turned his comic book into an audiobook, and we just completed volume 3. It's up on SoundCloud now, and then me and the partner that work on it are begun to. My partner on it just graduated from college, so later this week we're gonna have a meeting about what to do about volume 4. So
nice,
yeah,
awesome.
It's a lesbian romantic comedy called Sunstone.
Nice.
I edit, produce, direct it. She reads it and runs all our social media, being a lesbian herself. So I leave a lot of that up to her, and so it's in her voice as well. So to have a better connection to the audience, that obviously is the demographic for that type of story.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me paint a scenario for you. Somebody contacts you and asks you, somebody contacts you to set up a meeting, and you find out this is a legit meeting with somebody from Disney, with an executive from Disney who saw your film and wants to, consider it.
Right.
Would you, I mean, you're familiar with the, the Mortal Kombat Machinima series, that's basically what happened. They turned that, little short film they threw online, and it became like this 2 or 3 season series on Machinima. Is that something
Right.
you'd like to see happen, or would you like to do it as one film? And they told you, and if they said that they would give you like X number of dollars in the millions to do this, would you jump at it to do it yourself, or would you want to help with it?
I mean, it's it's like I'm if I was involved in any way, I'd be honored. Like I said, just the fact that that it's gone this far, and that I've worked on it and got it out for the fans to enjoy has been a great joy for me. And at the same time, I guess if something like that were to happen, I mean, when I watched the film, I mean the show as a kid, I always thought of it as a movie, like especially the first 2 seasons, and the first season alone. Even when I watched it, it made me feel like I felt like I was watching a movie more than a Saturday morning cartoon. And so in a lot of ways, I do see it as a film, and I think it could be an epic film and easily turn into a trilogy. And there's just so much there to play with. At the same time, if they did come to me and if somebody offered to that they wanted to do something else, some other format, maybe a live action series, TV series or something like that, that would be something that would be incredibly interesting too, to see where that goes. But again, like I'd be honored to be part of it in any way. And the money it's not so much about the money to me. It's more like, I'm passionate about the show, and to bring something like this to life, especially if it was for a company like Disney, would be like absolutely incredible. I wouldn't think twice about it. So yeah, I guess it's hard to it's hard to say exactly, but yeah, I would be pretty open-minded, and totally thrilled and honored, to be part of it in any way. So,
and there have directors that have gone from short films or very small budget independent films, or directors that you unless you're in the genre, or you're like Radio Horror is, or any other podcast or any other radio show or magazine, didn't know who they were. Look at the director of Godzilla. I mean, he directed the Rogue One, a Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
I mean, he directed Monsters, and Monsters. That was a pretty small film. I mean, nobody had ever heard of that film unless you were in the genre. But then the average person on the street, you say Godzilla, they know what that is. They know what Star Wars is. But nobody knew who Garrett Edwards?
Edwards.
Yeah.
Gareth Edwards.
Yeah, nobody knew what Monsters was. Nobody knew who the guy who directed Doctor Strange was. He directed like one like horror, he directed a couple horror movies, that were in theaters, but before that he was, still relatively unknown. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it is completely feasible. They could look at your body of work and say, and ask you, about like, budgeting. Do you know what you're doing and stuff like that? And be like, we would want to make this into something. You're not going to get $250 million like the Avengers, but
Well, I mean, it's I think one of the things, like you brought up Gareth Edwards, who did Monsters, and it's like one thing about him, which I think is great too, is that he did wear many hats. He wore many hats when he made the movie Monsters, and I think that what happens is that, and he had some experience before that too. I mean, he's done a lot of things, and I think that I do think, having worn a lot of hats myself, and been part of making movies that way, you do sort of have a good sense of how to work with a team, and so it's something that I'm excited to, if the opportunity came up, that I would totally be in for it, because I as intimidating and as much responsibility as it would be to bring something like this to life in on such a massive scale, it would be a complete honor and just amazing to tell a story that I grew up with, and be able to tell it in a way that I think would work, and with a team that could really make it come to life the way the fans deserve to see it. And I think that's so. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's for me. It's like I've been making films since I was 10 years old. And made my first feature when I was 16. With a cast and crew of 100, and it's I've been doing this for a long time, and you don't think about, like I was saying, the money so much. You think more about telling the story, and just having the opportunity to bring a story like that to life. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know what will happen, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see what does, if anything. And at the very, very least, I'm happy to have made something that the fans enjoy, and that maybe sparks some new conversation about the show, and maybe gets Disney excited about making it themselves. So it's, as much as I want to be part of it, it's for me, that's what it was about. And being part of it beyond that is a dream that I hope to happen, and if it doesn't, then it is what it is. But yeah.
One thing some people would love to probably know about is what type of program did you use to bring the Gargoyles to life in your film?
That's an interesting question. I actually, it's Maxon's, the company's Maxon, and it's their software, Cinema 4D, which I've used for years, and I actually flew in 2016 to SIGGRAPH to talk about my work on Retina, my feature, using it, and it's a great program, and it's actually, I mean, I've used a lot of 3D software, and to me, it's like the closest thing to what an editor would want, I guess, out of a 3D and 3D modeling animation software, if that makes any sense. Like, if you have a film background, it kind of seems to click, and so hence Cinema 4D. So it just makes a lot of sense to me, and so yeah, it was the first choice when it came to working on the fan film. It's my first choice to use that, and After Effects for some of the compositing, and yeah.
Just before I went to PAX East, I saw the film, and we had reposted it to the Radio Horror channel. I was at PAX East and immediately started to hunt down, because I heard it was really good, the Gargoyles Sega Genesis game. You ever played that?
Yeah.
It's really good too.
I know, yeah, and I've been seeing people post like about it on Instagram and Twitter, and I kind of wish I still had a copy. because it was
you can
so
easily
fun.
find it on eBay. Trust me, it still goes pretty cheap.
I'm sure. Yeah, you're probably right. I probably should just do a search on eBay. You can find it there.
Yeah, it runs anywhere from like I've seen it go as low as $6 on as low as $6 and on high as unopened about over $100. But opened, I've seen it go from like I haven't seen it go for more than maybe $40 open. So you got some range, if you want the box, you want the instructions, you want everything, you just want the cartridge. I've seen the cartridge go as low as for like $10 to $20, so that's not
Nice.
bad. For a used game or whatever. And again, it was a lot of fun. It was from the same people that made the Aladdin and Lion King video games. So Disney used that same team, which is great because the Aladdin and Lion King games were freaking awesome.
Yeah.
The comments on the film on let's say on your page and then on the Radio of Horror YouTube channel as well range from mostly positive to some negative responses. And do you have anything to say about the negative responses, or do you just kind of ignore it, to not give in to answering people's overly harsh negativity and criticism, or do you keep it as an open mind because of it is low budget and it's not a studio budget film?
No, I mean, I think that I think that it happens with everything that you do. Like when you're a filmmaker, you make a movie. You're never going to be able to please everybody, and I have been pretty humbled at the fact that there has been more positive reaction to it than negative, and it also makes me feel good about just the fact that it's not my property, and bringing it to life is something I wanted to do in a respectful way, and I'm glad the reaction is mostly positive. As for the negative comments or reaction, I don't. It's not like I don't ignore them or anything. It's not like I think everybody is entitled to their own opinion, and it's good to hear what people think either way, and so it doesn't really affect me too much. Doesn't. I'm not really sure what if it would sway me one way or another. I did what I did because I believed it was the way to do it, and for me, it was mostly just I wanted the fans to be happy, and I wanted people who don't really know about the show to kind of catch on to it a little bit. And like I said, I'm not a 3D or visual effects artist per se. I'm more of a filmmaker, and so I did what I could with the budget I had, with the tools that I had, and and I just hope that it's enough for people to enjoy and get an idea of what something would look like. A live action film would look like.
I see the Gargoyles being like the Captain America movies, where the first film should be entirely set in the past. You know what I mean? And then the movie ends with Xanatos getting the castle and bringing and learning of the curse and wondering. I really wonder. And then the next film, maybe being like about him raising the castle above the clouds. You know what I mean? I really hope that they keep a lot of the stuff that we really care about intact if they ever did anything with the property again. Even if they decided to do another cartoon series, which would be totally fine because that's how Gargoyles started. It wasn't a toy. It wasn't a cartoon series to sell toys like He-Man or Transformers. It was a cartoon series, and they made toys afterwards.
Right.
So if they did another cartoon series, I hope it would be in cell animation. Disney's all their Marvel cartoons, for better or worse, if you love or hate them, that's besides the point. I don't care. They're all in cell animation. They haven't gone completely CGI with their animated series, exception of their direct-to-DVD movies have been a lot of times CGI. Do I see Gargoyles being CGI? Yes, of course. You can't. I just don't. I mean, but if they put the level of care into, let's say, the way they brought Thanos to life, a lot of people said that Thanos, yes, they understand he's a CGI character, but geez, did he look real? And he looked better than like Groot sometimes, or or the Hulk. In terms of just like the way he was emoting his emotions and his tissue and skin and stuff, and Josh Brolin doing an excellent job bringing Thanos to life. They can bring the Gargoyles to life because the Gargoyles were, first of all, they're stone, and you could do like, real sculptures of stone statues and have the CGI come in, which would be fantastic.
Well, yeah, there's this like element of like, I mean, listen, like I said, I did my best with the 3D animation and the the modeling, the sculpting of the Gargoyles in my fan film, but I do I'm obviously aware of, like, how far that it can actually be taken when it's done with people more talented than me, and an actual team of people to make them really come to life. And you're right. I mean, today, like with movies like Avengers, and even the latest Planet of the Apes films, and motion capture, and just where they've gone with it, and what they're capable of now with really bringing like an actor's performance to life through the CG characters is just it's so amazing, and it's so effective that it's one of the things too that I guess you could say got me excited about making this fan film, is because I do feel like, for the first time, I feel like, well, maybe this could work, like maybe you could make this, not that it couldn't before, but maybe you could actually do it now, in a way that that worked in terms of the characters getting across their emotions, and because it's a very emotional story, and most of the characters are gargoyles. They're like you said. I mean, it would be very difficult to do with costumes and with makeup, and so yeah. I mean, I think for sure there's no better time to go at it than now, and it's really exciting to think of what that could look like when it's really brought to the next level. That's something I can't wait to see, whether I'm part of it or not. I can't wait to see it. So,
well, Carlos, why don't you give out where people can contact you with any thoughts and opinions and positive feedback they have about the Gargoyles fan film?
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I have a website, carlosferrer.com. It's FERRER, and then I can be reached on Twitter most of the time, and that's Twitter. It's at I am Carlos Ferrer, and that's usually, that's the best way.
And the link to the Gargoyles fan film is on your website as well as on your YouTube page, Carlos Ferrer.
Right, both. It's listed everywhere, and you can find it on YouTube. Just typing in Gargoyles fan film, it should come up. Yeah.
Well, the best of luck to you, and hopefully it will turn into something for you. Best of luck on your own personal projects, which are 1,000 times more important than a big studio project like the Avengers or the Gargoyles. The independent filmmakers are where the future of filmmaking is truly at. So that though your own independent projects are 1,000 times more important than some cartoon from the 90s. Without saying, without any more promotion of something that is a billion-dollar industry waiting to happen for you to become a superstar filmmaker.
Well, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens either way with Gargoyles or with my indie film. I put the same love into everything I do. So,
well, we appreciate you coming on the show and talking about the Gargoyles fan film. I appreciate you letting us post it on our Radio Horror YouTube channel to let people help spread the word of it. It's been mostly positive feedback, just as we said. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you weren't able to catch this interview live, you will hopefully be able to catch it on the Radio of Horror YouTube channel, and it will also be up on Carlos's YouTube channel as well and his website. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.